Well, it's 2020. Almost every church in America and thousands more globally sit empty today. Last year, if I told you every church would be empty on Easter Sunday, you would have no understanding of how that possibly could have happened. Maybe wouldn't even believe me. But I think we're having a moment in our nation right now, and hopefully in churches, that is much needed. A moment where bloated tradition is questioned and healthy reform in our hearts can occur. I thought about a movie this week as I was thinking about how to phrase all of this. As I watch on Facebook multiple pastors and just struggling with how to get their mind around an Easter that's like this. And I thought about the Grinch. You know, the cartoon one, not the last two, but I'm talking about the cartoon one, the old one. I was thinking about the Grinch, and for a moment I see in the end of that movie a scenario that's somewhat like what we experience today. The Grinch goes through all of the trouble. You remember the movie. He goes through all the trouble to try and stop Christmas from happening. He hates the cheery Who's down in Whoville, and he's just doing everything he can to make sure Christmas doesn't happen. So he takes the trees, and he takes the presents, and he pulls all the little lights and tinsel off the houses, and he shoves them all onto his sleigh, and little Max just takes it back on up the hill. And he sits up at the top of the hill, waiting for the sunrise on Christmas morning, kind of waiting to watch it burn. And his great hope is that Christmas they would be devastated. Surely this would destroy Christmas. Christmas morning comes. He looks down and he says these words. I'm going to quote from the original here. "They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo." He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas perhaps means a little bit more. I do think there's something to that story. I love the original Grinch. It wasn't about the trappings of Christmas. It was about the meaning of it. And the Grinch had a little lesson there. His heart grew a little bit. And Christmas still came to the Who's. Now, this next poem isn't as good. It's not a Dr. Seuss original, but I'd like to close today with an Easter-themed poem, and I think we'll find it fitting for today in our scenario, and I hope it encourages you. Easter Sunday came, but we all sat at home. Some gathered with family, some sat there alone. If we're all being honest, this is quite undesirous, but it's the way things are because of the virus. Perhaps Satan laughed as the church buildings were closed. This will stop them for sure, he gladly proposed. But with a sound rang out like a screech in his ears. What he heard was the sound of his worst confirmed fears. The children of God had not ceased to sing praise, but rather they sang from their homes the same phrase, "Christ, he is risen indeed." Unified, all the children of God agreed. Though their buildings sat empty, each and every room, the most empty of all was their Savior's empty tomb. Don't let Satan distract you. The fact still remains. Christ conquered death and emptied the grave. Nothing can ever take this away. May God bless you this Easter, and happy Resurrection Sunday. Would you pray with me?